How did I get myself into this? Because I don't think I've ever finished a TBR for 100%. So it would be very exciting if that happens for the first time. And for next year, my goal is to make less goals and make less lists. No, but list making is so fun. I think for next year, I'm not gonna do a. No, actually, I'm probably gonna do the exact same thing. Hello, fellow book lovers. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Eline, and today we are going to talk about my reading goals of 2025, and we're basically going to do a check-in to see if they are achievable, which are probably not, but that's okay. It is November. That means there are only 2 months in the year left to achieve my reading goals. And this year, I fear that I may have gotten myself in a little bit of a situation where I have a lot of reading plans and I have a lot of lists and goals and things, and they partly overlap, but they also partly do not overlap. So to give you a little bit of an idea what we're going to be looking into, we've got my Goodreads reading goal, and then we've got my 2025 reading goals, my 25 books in 2025, my fall TBR, and then there are book club books, current reads, new releases, and also series that I'm in the middle of. So basically what I want to do is I want to go through all of these lists and see if I can still achieve these goals, what I need to do to achieve these goals, and then I'm probably gonna come to the conclusion that I cannot achieve all these goals. So then I'm going to need to kind of prioritize some goals over others. And I'm going to be basically planning out my reads for the rest of the year. So it's also a little bit of a TBR video, I guess. My Goodreads reading goal I set to 56 books this year. And luckily for me, that is one goal that I do think I'm going to achieve. I am at 50 books so far. So with 2 months of the year left, I do think I am going to hit my goal of reading 56 books this year. As you can see, this is the spread in my reading journal that has my reading goals for 2025. This is for my Goodreads reading goal. And then here we have my reading goals. So we have read 56 books, which I'm going to achieve that one. So that I do not need to worry about. We have read more literary fiction, meaning I want to read more literary fiction books than I did last year. So to look into this one, I need to count how many literary fiction books I read last year, and then also look up how many I read this year and see how many more there are left to achieve this. Then we have read more poetry, which is kind of the same situation. I want to read more poetry than I did last year. Luckily for me, last year I read exactly 1 poetry book. So this is going to be relatively easy to achieve. I need to read 2 poetry books this year. However, I have not read a single one yet. So this does mean I need to read 2 more poetry books. Then read 20% of my physical TBR I have already achieved, so that's nice. And the last one is keep up with my reading journal, and I do feel like I'm gonna definitely achieve this one, but of course I cannot cross it off yet until the end of the year. Okay, I just looked up how many literary fiction novels I read in 2024, and honestly, I did find it difficult to determine how many I read exactly, because I feel like the distinction between romance novels and literary fiction novels with a heavy subplot of romance, that is sometimes really hard to distinguish between. So I was struggling with that a little bit. And I feel like the most controversial thing I did was shelve It Ends With Us as a literary fiction. I know it is shelved as a romance. I know. But I've read it and I don't agree. I talked about this in another video already, but I really just feel like it is not a romance. It just isn't. It is a story about abusive relationships and it's not a romance story. I just wanted to say that I did count that as a literary fiction, even though it is debatable. But yeah, I read 11 literary fiction novels last year. So if I want to read more than that this year, that means I need to read 12. And then luckily I have a genre tracker right here, so I can see that I read 9 literary fiction novels so far this year. So this means I need to read 3 more literary fiction before the end of the year if I want to complete this one being to read more literary fiction than last year. So far, it's looking good. All I need to do is read 2 poetry books, 3 literary fiction books, and then 1 more book of my choosing. But unfortunately, this is not all. We also have 25 books in 2025. So this is my 2025 TBR, and I wrote 25 books on this TBR at the beginning of January that I wanted to get to in 2025. And this is where we get into trouble because I have yet to read 1, 2, 3, 13, 14, 15 books of this list. So instead of reading 6 books to achieve all my goals, now I need to read 15 books to achieve all my goals. And the next thing I'm going to do is see if it overlaps with the goals that I already saw in my list. So basically, I'm just going to have to check if there are 2 poetry books and 3 literary fiction books in this list. So I'm going to go do that. Because if that's the case, then at least I'll achieve all my goals so far if I just read the 15 books off this list. So, Lover Girl and Books Close are 2 poetry books. So that's good. Definitely Intermezzo and The Nightingale are literary fiction. Slow Dance, I'm not entirely sure if it's a literary fiction or a romance. I do think that is a romance. And the same goes for A Love Letter to Whiskey. I do not know whether that's a romance or a literary fiction. So I'm gonna have to look these 2 up unless I find another literary fiction novel in this list. Talking at Night is the same category as Slow Dance and A Love Letter to Whiskey that I don't know if it's considered a romance or a literary fiction with more like a subplot of romance. These Violent Delights, I'm also not sure. So basically, there are 2 literary fiction books on this list for sure, and I have 4 titles to check the genre of. So Slow Dance, A Love Letter to Whiskey, Talking at Night, and These Violent Delights. I'm gonna quickly go on Goodreads and see what genre they are put as, and I'm gonna determine in which category they fall. Okay, I am back, and I just looked up the 4 books that I mentioned. I was going to look their genre up, and it turns out that Slow Dance and A Love Letter to Whiskey are classified as romance, whereas Talking at Night and These Violent Delights are classified as literary fiction with a heavy romance subplot, I guess. So that is good news because that means that as of now, if I read these 15 books of my 25 books in 25, I have reached all my other reading goals as well. But we're not done because then there's this. This is my fall TBR, and there is a little bit of overlap between these books and the books in my 25 books in 2025, but it also doesn't overlap completely. So there will be more books added to the list of books I need to read if I want to achieve all of my reading goals. A bunch of them I have already read, so I'm just going to be talking about the ones that are left. That's The Nightingale, The Bell Jar, Books Close, These Violent Delights, Beautiful Boy, and In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. That's actually a lot more overlap than I thought it was going to be. Basically, The Nightingale, The Bell Jar, Books Closed, These Violent Delights, and Beautiful Boy are all on my 25 books in 2025 list. So actually that only adds In My Dreams I Hold a Knife to the 15 books that are still left on my 2025 TBR. So basically this means that only In My Dreams I Hold a Knife needs to be added to the list of 25 books I need to read in 2025. So that's now a total of 16 books. The 15 out of the 25 books I want to read in 25 that are still left, and In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. And if I read all those 16 books, then all my goals are achieved. Let's, by the way, for a second, not pretend that that is in any way doable, but we're still going to continue looking at the rest. I know 16 books in the last 2 months of the year sounds like a lot, and it definitely is too much. But I have to be honest, I am pleasantly surprised that it's not more. So a little recap, we looked at my Goodreads reading goal, we looked at my 25 books in 25, my fall TBR, and my list of reading goals that I set for this year. And there is now a list of 16 specific titles that I need to read in order to achieve all of these goals. But this was not all, because there are still some book club books, some reads that I'm currently in the middle of, some new releases that are definitely not books that I need to read, but they are books that I want to read. And then there are also series that I'm in the middle of that I want to continue. So let's start with that last one. I feel like there's actually just one, being Throne of Glass. So Throne of Glass, as I just showed you, was in my list of 25 books in 25, and currently I am in the middle of Throne of Glass, so that one I'm definitely going to finish, but I'm more talking about the other books in the series, because the list of 16 books that I have now determined I need to read in order to achieve all my goals does not include the rest of the Throne of Glass series. So that is unfortunate, because I actually really like the series and I don't want to pause on it for too long. I definitely do not mind reading books in between, and I don't want to read the Throne of Glass series completely back to back, but also I feel like waiting 2 months and waiting until January 1st basically before I can pick up the next book in the series is a bit too long. So I just want to factor in that among all the books that I still want to read this year, there will be at least one more book out of the Throne of Glass series, if not more. I need to look up the title of the next book in the series. Actually, I don't know it, but for now, let's call it just the second book in the series. That's definitely going to be added to the list. So this leaves us at 17 books. Actually, Throne of Glass is not the only series that I'm in the middle of, because I momentarily forgot about One Dark Window that I read and the sequel to it being Two Twisted Crowns. And I did read One Dark Window in September, so I do think I still want to also read the sequel this year. So Crown of Midnight is the second book in the Throne of Glass series, and then Heir of Fire is the third. And I think I want to add both of those to the list. I was a little bit in doubt about Heir of Fire, because maybe it's not necessary to read the third book as well, but I don't want the gap in between reading the different parts of the series to be so long that I forget certain things. So in my notes that I made, I did put that one a bit in between brackets, so we're counting it for now, but I will get back to you on this one. So this means we have the 15 books of my list, 25 and 25. Then we have In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, and Crown of Midnight, and maybe Heir of Fire, and Two Twisted Crowns. So that's 19 books now. This is getting a lot. I am also in the middle of the Anne of Green Gables series, but I think I'm not going to put that one on the list. The next installment in that is Anne of the Island, and I am very excited about it, but I feel like the list is just getting way too long. I think I took more than a year in between part 1 and part 2. I felt like it was fairly easy to pick up the next book and leave off where you started last time. I really feel like it's not necessary for me to read them back to back or with short pauses in between. I feel like I can take a bit of a longer time in between books for that series. So I'm gonna say let's not make the list too long and let's leave that one off. Then there are some new releases that I really want to get to, and just a little side note here. I know some of the books that I'm going to mention are not new releases in the sense that they have just been released. I mean, they are books that have released after I made the list, 25 books to read in 25. And some of the books I did know they were going to come out, but I didn't put them on the list. I don't know why I didn't really, I don't know. I think I put only books on the list, 25 books to read in 25, that had already been released. And there are some books that have released since that I feel like I should have added, or like I wish I could have added them. So this is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I love Taylor Jenkins Reid. She is one of my 2 favorite authors. I will always be between her and Catherine McGee, and I cannot pick one, but basically she is a author that I really just want to read all her books, and she came out with a new one this year, and everyone that I have seen read it really loves it. A lot of people have said it's a sad book, which I do not mind that at all. I really love sad books for some reason. So that's there. And then speaking of Catherine McGee, she is coming out with a new book I think it releases in like 2 days or something. I pre-ordered it and I think it's supposed to be delivered in the next couple of days. And that is A Queen's Match, which is the second part in a duology. So last year I read A Queen's Game, which is the first part of the duology, and I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. Am I gonna add A Queen's Match to the list? Absolutely. But I feel like I remember hardly anything of the first book. I flew through it, but I just don't think the storylines and the characters really stuck with me for some reason. So I kind of want to reread that one before I get into A Queen's Match. I already kind of wanted to reread it just because it's so good. I was in between jogging my memory by reading a few summaries or maybe rereading it, but I really do also want to annotate it. So I think I'm going to add a Queen's Match to the list for sure, and then also maybe a reread of A Queen's Game. Then we have Wild Reverence, which is by Rebecca Ross and is the prequel to the Divine Rivals duology, or it's called the Letters of Enchantment duology, I think. And I'm in between adding this to the list or not. I definitely am excited about it. I finished Ruthless Vows on like the 1st of October or something like that, and I gave it 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. And then I found out that there is a prequel written for the duology, and that is Wild Reference. So I am really excited about this, but I also feel like it's not necessary to add to the list because it is a part of the series, but it's a prequel and it is about different characters. So it's not like I really need to remember everything from Ruthless Vows to enjoy Wild Reference to the fullest. So while I am very excited about it and I definitely do want to read it, I think I'm going to keep this one for 2026 just because the list is getting so long already. And the last book in the list of new releases is Time of Your Life by Jessa Hastings. I have read the Magnolia Park series last year and I absolutely loved it. It is one of my favorite series of all time. I'm just obsessed with Jessa Hastings' writing style, and that got solidified for me even more when I read The Conditions of Will earlier this year, and I just loved her writing again. So it wasn't just that series. I really think it is just her writing as an author. So I really, really, really want to read A Time of Your Life. I am just beyond excited about A Time of Your Life. I love her writing style so much, and I did download it on my e-reader already, and I read the first 2 sentences just because I couldn't help myself, even though I was in the middle of a different read. And I already loved it, so I'm just so excited, and I really don't think I can wait until January to pick that one up. And the last new release, or a book that has been released after I made the 25 in 25 list, is Sunrise on the Reaping. So the prequel to the Hunger Games trilogy, the story of Haymitch, which I've heard only really, really, really good things about, and I'm excited to get into that as well, so I have added it to the list. So out of new releases, I have added Time of Your Life, Sunrise on the Reaping, A Queen's Game I put between brackets for now because I'm not sure if I want to do the reread or not. And then A Queen's Match. So that's 4 more books added to the list. So we had 15 books on the list, 25 books in 25. And then I added In My Dreams I Hold a Knife because it was on my fall TBR. So then it was 16 books. Then for series I'm in the middle of, I added Two Twisted Crowns, Crown of Midnight, and Heir of Fire. So that's 19. And then new releases, I added Sunrise on the Reaping, A Queen's Game, A Queen's Match, and Time of Your Life. So now we're at 20. And then we have my current read. I am currently in the middle of 5 different books, so there's also that. I'm in the middle of Milk and Honey, which is a poetry collection. And then I'm in the middle of Throne of Glass, but I will not be counting that now because it's already counted within the 15 books on the list of 25 books in 25. I'm in the middle of Babel as well, and Anna Karenina, which is a book that I started in February or March, I believe, and it is very slow paced, and I'm just going through it very slowly, but I do really want to finish it. And then A Clash of Kings, the second book in the Game of Thrones series, which I'm reading with my boyfriend. So that's why there are so many books on the list. We've got a classic, we've got a poetry collection, we've got a book that I'm reading with my boyfriend, and then we have 2 more like general books, I guess. So assuming that I am going to finish every book that I'm currently in the middle of, which I do plan to, now we're at 25. How did I get myself into this? Now the only thing left on the list is my book club books. So I am in a book club in the Netherlands, which is kind of like a general countrywide WhatsApp community thing. And we have a book that we read with everyone in the book club. And I am very lucky because the book they picked for this month is already on my list because it is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. So that does not add another one to the list. And then we also have, so within our book club community, we have different cities that have a separate book club within the book club, if that makes sense. So in my city, we have a separate book club. Basically, if your city or your town is big enough and enough people are interested, then they create a separate community or like a separate group within the community. So for my city, because it's big enough, there is a separate group of like 50 people or something like that. And we pick our own book club book in that every month as well. So that's another book club books. So my book club basically has 2 book club books, one being for the whole group, for the countrywide group, and then one being for my city specifically. For the one that we read with everyone in the book club, we do not have meetings, we just have a WhatsApp group in which we discuss the book. And then for the one in my city, we do have a physical meeting where we discuss the book. So everyone is allowed to put a suggestion in, and I did put A Queen's Game as a suggestion because it is one of my favorite books, and I think it would be so fun to talk about it with other people. So there is a small chance that A Queen's Game gets picked for the book club book, but I'm gonna have to assume, because the chance is so small, that it's actually maybe gonna be a book that is not yet on my list. So that's a bit of a question mark because the book gets picked in a few days and we don't know yet what the book is going to be. So I believe we were at 24 books, and let's say, keeping into account that it might be 25, that we are at 25 books. So now that we've gone through all of the lists and all of the goals and all of the TBRs, I have to draw the conclusion that it is completely impossible to achieve all of this. And now we get to the part where I need to prioritize certain books over other books and kind of make my decisions and make a TBR for the end of the year. So I am not going to make a November TBR necessarily. I'm going to make a November and December TBR, like an end of the year TBR. I'm not sure what I'm going to do in my reading journal just yet, because I kind of want to have a TBR for the last 2 months of the year in general, because I don't think I like monthly TBRs that much. And I have actually decided to stop doing monthly TBRs in my reading journal setup of 2026. But I also feel like it's just 2 more months, and I already have my reading journal set up in the way that I have pages set out for monthly TBRs, and it has the title written and everything. So I don't want to leave that empty. So I do think I actually will end up I do think I'll actually end up making a monthly TBR, but I'm just not too strict with them. Okay, I'm gonna do some thinking, some prioritizing, and then I'm gonna get back with you and tell you what I have decided for my TBR. I feel like I may have set the numbers wrong at some point because I just wrote out the list of all the book titles for my own overview, and I got to 28 titles, and I feel like I've not set that number before in this video, so I feel like I may have miscounted somewhere. But either way, I have 28 titles now to pick from for the end of the year TBR. Okay, I have made my first selection of books that I definitely want to get to. So, Milk and Honey, A Clash of Kings, Throne of Glass, and Babel are books that I'm currently in the middle of that I definitely am going to finish. So, I wrote those on the list. Anna Karenina, I'm still a bit unsure about because I really do want to finish it, but I am only 50% through, and so basically I did take like 8 months to read the first 50%, so I'm not sure if it's doable to finish it this year. I really did want to, but maybe I will just keep it for the next year and maybe read a chapter here and there, but not really focus on finishing it per se. It's also, I think, almost 1,000 pages. So if I finish it, not only do I feel like it's not a priority for me enjoyment wise, I also feel like it's going to take up so much of my time that I could spend on maybe reading 3 other books instead of just one half of this book. And then A Queen's Match is coming in the mail very soon and is the book that I've maybe been the most excited about for a long time. So that one definitely made the list. The Nightingale made the list because it is on my 25 books in 25 and on my fall TBR, and it is the book club pick of my book club, so that definitely made the list. And then I added the books that were left on my fall TBR because I do feel like my 25 books in 25 is definitely where I'm gonna have to make sacrifices because that's just not doable to read all 15 of those books. Whereas with my fall TBR, I really feel like I'm making a lot of progress and I feel like it is doable to complete it 100%, and that would be super fun because I don't think I've ever finished a TBR for 100%. So it would be very exciting if that happens for the first time. So that means I added These Violent Delights, In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, Beautiful Boy, Books Close, and The Bell Jar. So we are now at 11 books for my end of the year TBR. And to be completely honest, I feel like we are approaching the maximum amount that I can read because I did not yet include the book club pick of my city's book club yet. And of course, there is a small chance that it's going to be one of these books, but I doubt it. So that's there as well. So then we're kind of at 12 books, which means that I have to read 6 books a month. And I do think that's my average. So I just flipped through my reading journal a bit, and I had 1 month where I read 7 books and 1 month where I read 8 books. But 8 books a month is so far my maximum. So I feel like the maximum books that can be on this TBR is 16 books. And that is really pushing it because that means I need to have November and December to be equal to my best reading month so far. But for the fun of it, let's actually create a list of 16 books because it is also the point, obviously, of these challenges to push yourself. And honestly, I'm gonna make a TBR now for the end of the year. And honestly, if I don't finish it, then literally that doesn't matter. So it's not that deep. So that means I have only four? Yeah, if I include the book club pick as the 12th mystery book, that means I only have 4 more books to pick off the list. And there's so much to pick from. I did cross off a few. So definitely Icebreaker, for example, I am not going to read anymore. Well, definitely not in 2025, but I don't think I'm going to read it at all, to be honest. I put it on the list because it was talked about so much that I kind of got curious, but I just don't think it's for me. And also, I'm not interested in ice hockey whatsoever. So I think a sports romance every once in a while can be fun. But then if I'm going to pick up a sports romance, I'm more interested in tennis romance novels that I saw recently, which I never heard anyone talk about. But that's just a sport I'm generally more interested in. I don't actually care anything about ice hockey, which maybe I need to mention here that ice hockey doesn't really exist over here in the Netherlands. Like, I mean, I'm sure it exists because there's always going to be a group of people that's like, oh, they do this in America, let's try it. But it's just not a thing. You know what I mean? So, long story short, Icebreaker's out. The Love in Other Words reread is also out because I feel like I don't know. I feel this way in general about rereads. There are so many books that I loved so much that I really want to reread them, but I also feel like the list of books that I have never read before that I want to read is so long that it feels like a waste of time to do a reread, even though I think I'll probably enjoy myself a lot. I think it is also doable to achieve the goals that are in my list of 2025 goals. So that's the 2 poetry books and the literary fiction books. And I just checked, this list has 2 literary fiction on it. So I do want to add one more literary fiction novel for sure, because then I have completed the more literary fiction novels than last year thingy also. Okay, I have looked at the list again and again, and I made some notes and I have made my decision. So I do have my final list of my 16 books that are going to be on my end of the year TBR now. So I did decide I do want to do a reread of A Queen's Game just because I do not remember the plot enough to fully enjoy the new book, I think. And since Catherine McGee is one of my favorite authors of all time, I really do want to enjoy every single book that she puts out just to the fullest. So A Queen's Game is added to the list, and then also Time of Your Life because I'm just super excited about it. I chose to add Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. It is on my 25 in 25, and also it is a literary fiction. So if I read that and then the others as well, then I will also reach the goal of reading more literary fiction than I did last year. And then I went with Two Twisted Crowns for the last one on the list. I don't know, I was in doubt for this one because One Dark Window definitely wasn't my favorite read. I believe I gave it 3.5 stars or something like that. And I do feel like there are fantasies out there that I will enjoy more. And definitely there will also be books on this list that I would probably rate higher. But I do think if I'm not going to read it anytime soon, then maybe I'm not going to read it at all. Because now I still remember the world and the plot and how it ended quite well. And I'm afraid that if I leave this book for too long, then I'm not going to remember everything that happened in One Dark Window. And then, I don't know, I might just never pick up book 2, or I'm going to be in the same situation that I now am with A Queen's Match, where it's a duology, but I feel like I don't remember enough of book 1 to fully appreciate book 2. Obviously, with A Queen's Game and A Queen's Match, that wasn't really my fault because I literally didn't have the option to go into book 2 immediately since it wasn't out yet. But either way, I want to avoid this problem. So generally with series and duologies, I really do want to read them not back to back, but in a short period of time. Otherwise, I'll forget details and it would just be less enjoyable. So I did now end up with 16 books that I need to read before the end of the year. I feel like this is obvious, but this is all really just for fun. So honestly, I might read 10 of these books, or 8, or 5, or I might actually pick up another book. Who knows? Maybe tomorrow I'm like, okay, no, actually, I want to read this and it's not on this list. I don't know. I do think it's fun to finish challenges and achieve goals. Obviously, I wouldn't be putting in all this effort if I didn't. And these are definitely books that I am interested in. So chances are that I will read them. I feel like I made some sort of progress. I feel like I organized the mess that was my reading goals and my TBR. So I do feel like this has been a productive video. I don't know if it's been fun to watch. I hope so. I feel like at the very least it was productive for me. And now I know what I want to read. And I have accepted the fact that I'm not going to finish the 25 books in 25 list. And for next year, my goal is to make less goals and make less lists. No, but list making is so fun. I think for next year, I'm not gonna do a. No, actually, I'm gonna. Yeah, I'm probably gonna do the exact same thing. So I'll see you in 12 months when I make the exact same video again. Anyway, I am gonna end the video here. I feel like I have made enough content now for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're interested, I did make some other videos that you can go watch. Please subscribe to my channel. That would be so helpful and so nice. And I will hopefully also see you in the next one. Bye bye! I don't know how to explain this, but I feel like je mag niet zomaar kijken. Je mag wel kijken, maar ik word zenuwachtig.